Peregrine Falcon. Can you tell me what speed you've reached today?
I have reached about 90 miles an hour today because it's actually pretty windy out there. But if I'm really wanting to go fast, I can actually reach up to about 180 miles per hour.
Have you ever fainted?
No, because actually the way in which my skull and my blood vessels are all kind of arranged mean that actually when I'm diving at that speed, which is a much greater G-force than an aeroplane pilot, doing the loops, etc. would experience, I can actually survive without any problem at all.
What's your favourite food?
Well, my favourite food has got to be pigeon, and that is the kind of classic thing really that we tend to hunt for are pigeons, feral pigeons, wood pigeons, collared doves, things like that. But really, in a typical kind of, maybe edge of town, city environment, I might eat over 100 different types of bird that are found in the area.
Do you ever have any fun?
So the rest of the time when I'm not killing and eating, I tend to sit around really, because it depends on the weather as well. And like a lot of raptors, like buzzards and kestrels, if it's raining, there's no point doing anything because your feathers get wet, you're not so good at flying, your prey perhaps is hidden away as well because of the rain. But actually if it's a sunny day, then I love to just join other birds like gulls on the thermals and circle around and circle high and high, and it gives me a fantastic view of wherever I might be living.
Do you have any friends or family?
I've got a mate, and we've been together now for about 2 or 3 years. So actually she before me was with someone else about 5 miles away, and she didn't get on too well with him, so she came over to here where I am. So actually for the last 3 or 4 years or so we've had about 3 or 4 chicks in each year, and we occasionally see them. The youngsters, which were boys, they tend to stay quite close to home. They don't tend to travel too far away. But the daughters that we've had, they disappear. We don't see them again. They tend to travel maybe 150, 200 miles away.
Do you remember when you met your future wife? Do you remember wooing her? Can you tell us how you wooed her?
Yeah, so first of all, she was still with her other man 5 miles away, but she was starting to just kind of, spread her wings a little bit. And of course, on those nice summer days when you're just getting on the thermals and what have you, she was coming over this way a little bit. So there was a real opportunity there for me to be on the thermals at the same time and to interact with her a little bit and what have you. But it took a few months. But then it was around sort of Christmas time. She'd snuggle a little bit closer. A bit of snuggling up, bit of calling to each other, circling together, and particularly when you get nice sunny days in January and February time, that's when we were out together. And it was that point really she was breaking off from her other mate. There's plenty of other peregrines around, so I'm sure that he's now got someone else now. Yeah, it was good.
So you talk about your family. Do you ever worry about the future?
So actually around here, there's plenty of food. There's lots of places to nest, there's lots of places for them to go to. What I worry about more actually are some of our peregrines that are then moving a bit more north. And as they head north, there's a few things going on actually up there. There's less prey. The habitat changes. So whereas here we've got some nice woodland, we've got some nice grassland, we've got nice city kind of landscapes. As you head north, you still have some of the cities and towns, but you have big open areas of farmland and moorland and mountains. And there you have less prey. Things like skylarks that we like to eat, stone chats, meadow pipits, they're all birds that are not doing so well in the wider countryside. So there's less of them around to eat, so I worry about that. Also, there's illegal persecution going on. So unfortunately, when some of our relatives reach some of the moorlands, they get shot or poisoned, which isn't terribly good. And the third thing is kind of changing climate. So up in Scotland, for example, northern England, relatives of mine keep telling me that they're seeing much wetter springs, much colder springs. And so when they then have their chicks, the chicks are getting hypothermia and dying.
Could you describe your character to me? Are you quite serious, or do you have a funny side?
Well, where I am here in the West Country, I love going into the city and the town because I love socialising, and because there's lots of us around here now, actually, those that are just 2 miles away in the nearby territory, I get on really well with them, and those going east, I get on really well with them. So, I really like to sometimes interact with them, but not too much, and it becomes complicated. I have to be a little bit careful because otherwise the wife might get a little bit jealous. But equally, during those kind of autumn times when it gets a bit grey and it gets a bit misty, particularly in kind of the cliff area where I have my nest, it can be a little bit I don't know, that bit of downtime, quiet time. I tend to get, maybe a little bit of SAD, a bit of that kind of, short daylight hours, things like that. But as I say, the good thing is that the breeding season starts early, so at least by December time, I'm snuggling back up to my wife and thinking about the next season.
If you could give a message to us, what would your message be?
As someone that eats birds, I'm very aware that there's lots of birds out there in the countryside that we don't have anymore. We don't have in the numbers that we used to have. And actually, the fact that we as a peregrine falcon now are doing really well compared to 50 years ago, compared to when illegal persecution was much greater, compared to when pesticides were causing our prey to die and us to lay very thin eggshells and things like that. Actually, one thing I like to say to people is celebrate us. Celebrate the fact that we're here, that we're doing really well, and the fact that we are the fastest bird in the world. So that in its own right is something to celebrate here in the UK.